Today, we're going to deconstruct a system of power, but not the kind you see in boardrooms or on battlefields. No, this is about the quiet, coiled, and absolutely magnetic power of Robert De Niro. It's a philosophy that was born on a film set but became a weapon, one that completely changed the art of acting forever. And it's all built on one single radical idea, that true strength isn't what you show off, it's what you have the discipline to hold back. The year is 1974. Robert De Niro, this powerful but, famously volatile young actor, is on the set of The Godfather Part 2. Now, you gotta remember, back then the rulebook for a powerful performance was pretty clear. To have weight, you had to be expressive. To show you're angry, you yell. To show you're sad, you cry. Power meant putting on a show with loud dialogue and big energy that left the audience with zero doubt about what you were feeling. It was all about adding more. But on that set, surrounded by these absolute giants of the craft, De Niro was about to realize something. That the real path to intensity wasn't through adding more, but through a ruthless, systematic process of taking things away. He was about to light that whole rulebook on fire.
So, here's the game plan. We're going to start with that huge revelation back in '74. Then we'll hit rewind and see how this whole method was actually forged in his own deep-seated shyness. We'll lay out the core philosophy, what we're calling the Stillness doctrine, and then, this is the good part, we'll look at the actual system he put into action. After that, we'll talk about his legacy of control, and finally, we'll boil it all down to one powerful takeaway for you.
All right, Section 1, the 1974 revelation. Look, this isn't just a story about a great actor giving a great performance. This is about the birth of a whole new philosophy, right there on the set of what might just be the greatest film ever made. It was right here, in the middle of becoming the young Vito Corleone, that he had this fundamental insight, an idea that would completely redefine what screen presence even means.
Think about it like this. On one side, you've got the entire industry's playbook, expressive chaos. It's a philosophy of more signals, more volume, more energy, just fill the screen. But De Niro's insight was the exact opposite, contained intensity. Instead of adding things, he started systematically subtracting anything and everything that wasn't absolutely necessary. Instead of yelling, he cultivated this intense, internal psychological focus. And instead of all that chaotic energy, he chased absolute, rock-solid control over his own body. He figured out that real power on screen isn't the explosion itself. It's the insane, unbearable pressure building up right before it happens.
So the conclusion he landed on was, wow, profound in just how simple it was. To get that raw, undeniable intensity that a camera just loves, he had to strip it all away. Get rid of all the variables, the nervous tics, the extra gestures, the vocal tricks, until the only thing left was pure, disciplined physical control. This was it. This was the foundation, the genesis moment of what would become the De Niro Method. But an obsessive need for control like this, it doesn't just come out of nowhere.
Which brings us to Section 2, forged in shyness. See, to really get the method, you have to get the man. This whole philosophy wasn't just some artistic idea he dreamed up. It was forged over years, really, as a way to deal with a deep and personal challenge. It was his way of turning a weakness into an absolute weapon. This timeline, it tells an incredible story. His early life, marked by instability after his parents split, which led to this shyness so deep that his friends called him Bobby Milk. Can you imagine? He was quiet, withdrawn, always watching from the sidelines. But inside, there was all this massive, volatile energy with nowhere to go. Then, he finds the Stellar Adler Conservatory. And this wasn't just some acting class. It was like a laboratory for human behavior. Here he went through this intense, systematic training to get total mastery over his body. And that's where everything changed. He learned how to take all that chaos inside him, all the shyness and insecurity, and channel it. Not by letting it explode outward, but by turning it inward into this powerful, controlled stillness that just commanded your attention.
This quote from his teacher, Stella Adler, was basically the key that unlocked everything for him. The technical perfection of the body is the prerequisite for psychological freedom. Just think about what that really means. You can't even hope to show the messy, complicated inner world of a character until you have first achieved total discipline over your own body. For De Niro, this was a light bulb moment. By mastering his body through relentless work, by getting that technical perfection, he was finally free to let all that volatility exist on screen, but safely contained. And let me tell you, that containment is way more terrifying and magnetic than just letting it all spill out. Which leads us right here to Section 3, the Stillness doctrine. Let's really define this thing. Because this wasn't an accident, it wasn't a personality quirk. It was a deliberate, structured, and repeatable doctrine, built on 3 core pillars. This is the why behind his power. Okay, at its heart, the De Niro method is built on one core belief. The audience must come to the actor. This just flips the whole traditional dynamic on its head. He refuses to come out to you, begging for attention with big gestures and loud emotions. Nope. Instead, his entire performance is a strategic withholding of information. By giving you less, by being so unnervingly still, he creates this vacuum. He cranks up the internal pressure and psychological tension so high that you, the viewer, you have no choice but to lean in, to study every tiny little movement, trying to figure out what in the world is going on behind those eyes. He makes you do the work.
And this doctrine is built on 3 pillars. First, the Subtractive Protocol, basically a ruthless, systematic process of cutting out every single action, gesture, or word that isn't 100% essential. If it doesn't serve the truth of that moment, it's gone. Second, the Immersion and Authenticity Mandate. This one is so important. See, stillness by itself can be boring. De Niro's stillness is magnetic because it is earned through obsessive real-world prep. His silence is actually full of stuff. It's full of real lived experience. And third, the nonverbal dominance rule. He knew that the real power in a movie isn't in the dialogue. It's in everything that's left unsaid. He relies on his eyes, his posture, the subtle way he shifts his weight, the intensity in his gaze, to carry the entire weight of a scene.
Okay, so that's the philosophy, that's the why. But a philosophy is pretty useless without a way to execute it, right? So now, let's get into the how. Section 4, the system in action. This is where we go from these big ideas to the grueling, actual protocols De Niro used to bring this whole doctrine to life.
The first and probably most famous system is the Meticulous Physical Transformation Protocol. Now, this is not just about getting into character. This is about earning the right to be still. It's this belief that you can only achieve real authenticity through dedicated, often painful physical effort. You can't just fake the weight of experience. You have to literally embody it, building the character from the outside in so that the internal truth has a proper home to live in.
60. Just let that number sink in for a second. That is the number of pounds De Niro systematically put on to play the older Jake LaMotta in Raging Bull. And this wasn't about vanity. It was a cold, calculated execution of his method. He needed to feel that physical burden, the slowness, the sheer weight of a washed-up fighter. But it wasn't just about weight. For Taxi Driver, he got a real cab license and worked 12-hour shifts driving a taxi through New York just to understand Travis Bickle's loneliness and exhaustion. This obsessive preparation is what fills his stillness with so much power. He earns every second of it. So, the physical prep builds the foundation. That makes sense. But that leads to the really big question on set. How do you actually perform stillness? How do you show an audience what you're thinking without using words or big actions? There has to be a technique, right? A system for the performance itself? And here it is, the second protocol. He called it the Pre-Action Scene Deconstruction. We just know it as the pause. But listen, this is not an actor forgetting his lines. This is a weapon. It's the systematic, deliberate use of these long, charged, unpredictable pauses before he does something or says a line. And in that silence, what happens? The audience sees a mind at work. We see him calculating, remembering, feeling rage. We see the decision being made in real time. He basically deconstructs the moment, stretching it out to create this immense, controlled psychological tension. He shows you the character's entire inner world without saying a single word. That's the system in action. So let's zoom out in Section 5 and just look at the legacy of all this work. I mean, this method didn't just give us a bunch of legendary performances. It fundamentally changed the DNA of the Hollywood leading man. It completely rewired what we, the audience, expect from our heroes, or our anti-heroes. Through this method, De Niro basically created a whole new archetype. Before him, leading men were often pretty straightforward, right? Their motivations were clear, their heroism wasn't really in question. De Niro gave us the intense, psychologically complex anti-hero, guys like Travis Bickle or the young Vito Corleone, men who were defined by these turbulent but fiercely controlled internal worlds. We were glued to them precisely because we never knew what they were going to do next. Their stillness felt like a threat, like a promise of violence that was being held in check by a single thread. And what's amazing is the method didn't just transform his acting, it transformed him. He basically engineered his own evolution.
He took that shy, quiet Bobby Milk and through sheer, systematic discipline, turned him into a global cinematic icon. Today, the name De Niro itself is basically shorthand for this cool, unflappable control. His art became his brand.
So when you boil it all down, his legacy is this: the institutionalization of stillness as a weapon into the language of film worldwide. He proved without a shadow of a doubt that the greatest power on screen is not the loudest voice or the biggest explosion. It's the controlled, contained energy that forces the entire world to just stop, hold its breath, and lean in to see what happens next. Actors today are working in a world that he built.
Which brings us to our final section, your takeaway. Because here's the thing, the principles of the De Niro method, they're not just for actors. They can be translated into a universal law of power and influence that you can use in any field, in any room you ever walk into.
Here it is. The most profound lesson from all of this is that the most powerful energy is the energy you systematically choose not to spend. We live in a world that's constantly rewarding noise, frantic activity, and broadcasting every single thought. But true power, it lies in conservation. It lies in control, in intention, and in the strategic, disciplined use of silence.
So what does this actually mean for you? Well, it means you can adopt the Subtractive Protocol. In a meeting, a negotiation, even just a conversation, systematically cut out the unnecessary actions and all those filler words. Stop feeling like you have to fill every single silence. Instead, commit to finding your power within that silence. Let it have weight because you've done your homework. And above all, rely on disciplined, controlled intention. Say less, but make it mean more. Move less, but with greater purpose. Trust me, contained intensity commands respect in any arena.
Robert De Niro built his entire legend on one truth, that the highest form of intensity is the intensity that is contained. The De Niro method gave us a systematic blueprint for turning stillness into a weapon, for achieving an absolute command of the cinematic frame. And it leaves all of us with one simple, immutable rule, for the screen and for life. The person who controls their stillness controls the room.